this is about is to how to create business in EVE Online, how to basically change and innovate within EVE, and how that's been done in the past decade. So for 10 years, players of all over have changed the face of the way that EVE Online works and as we know it today. And that's been done by various businesses that have been created and various businesses that have obviously died in a fire. And we've seen many of those. So, tell you a little bit about me. Been playing the game for a really long time, since we had the unfortunate before contract system, if anybody remembers that, old escrow system. Yeah, it was terrible. Opened the one-stop mining shop. If anybody's been playing for about 10 years, you'll remember that. It was the most successful mining shop in the history of EVE. Basically, all we did was internally buy stuff from JITA, ship it to destination, profit 15%. That was it, and that's how it began as a business. But businesses naturally need to evolve, and this happens with anybody creating a business or managing a business within EVE Online. So what we did was basically optimize how that's done by adding manufacturing, adding logistics, hiring other people, and so you bring your margins, get better margins, bring your costs down. And that's the basics of any business in EVE Online, whether it be real world business or whether it be EVE Online. And the virtual business world of EVE Online translates to real life business opportunity. So anybody here involved in business in the real world? Anybody? Okay. So you can always take what you learn here, whether you be a new player, an older player, and use that in the real world. And it's very, allow you to try things in the virtual world that may not be successful. But that's always something that you can take and move on with. So One Stop Research Alliance 2009, that was the first major initial public offering in EVE Online's history that at the end of its conclusion was sold and transferred. And to this day still remains the largest public IPO that was transferred in that manner. So that was 2009. The Caversini bonds were initiated for $174 billion in 2009 money. So obviously that's a little bit different than today's money. The IPO involved a large amount of public investors, and because of the way that the share system in EVE Online works, we had to change things in order for this to operate. So we developed a virtual stock exchange, which was the first of its kind for EVE Online. And that was the first step in innovation in the business world and things that were happening within EVE. So we had to code tools specifically for this process, and that developed EVE Trade, which was actually purchased by EVE Central Reserve by Celine D. Celeste later on. So community events, EVE Trade, and do industry consultants. That pretty much sums it up. So here's some statistics from during that time frame. Sold over 10,000 BPC kits during the life of the company. The company ran for about 18 months. So we did 10,000 BPC kits in just that period until the IPO was sold. All of that is public. All the records are available online if anybody wants to take a look at those. That was when this is how we optimize our business. So we acquired T2 BPO sets over a period of time. Those BPO sets were then incorporated into production, which then further drove down our overall cost, allows us to make greater margin. And that's just part of business. You can always look for ways to optimize. Now back in 2009, prices for T2 BPOs obviously were a lot different. So that back then it was a good way to invest and push that down. Today it's a little bit of a different story. If you want a collector's item, you can grab it. One Stop Research Shop, 8th largest alliance in game by membership at one point. That was at our peak. And the purpose of this as a business was quite different. Yes, we had a research shop. This was before the time where we had citadels. It was before the time that you didn't have unlimited research slots in stations. So it created a unique opportunity that we took advantage of. And that was to open the doors to all players to do research with us for a minimal fee and allow them to research whatever they wanted. And it was a big success because at that time, the tools didn't exist within EVE Online to allow players to freely research as they do today. So again, that's a niche market we took advantage of, and it was very successful. Now on the back end, what a lot of people don't know that happened is We were only doing that to cover the fuel cost of all of the structures that we had online, which was hundreds of plazas back at that time, strictly for research, which allowed us to monopolize all of the copy slots to generate thousands of VPC kits and sell at pretty much no cost to us, other than the investment of the blueprint and time to research, which was pretty much free. I mean, you can count the time. It's not like, you mine and it's free. But that's pretty much how we did it, and that allowed us to make huge windfall profits in a very short amount of time by utilizing the assets from the IPO. So anybody have any questions about what an IPO is before I go any further? No? Okay. Like I said, it was the first IPO of its size to be fully liquidated. Investors were paid out. That ran for a full year. And at the conclusion of that, everybody more than doubled their money. It was also the first IPO where more than 50% of the shares were purchased outright and were resold almost instantaneously due to the popularity of the IPO. So let's look at the 10,000-foot view on business. So in looking down, there's really some basic principles that you need. Brand recognition. So whatever business you decide to start, whether it be something simple, you want to move an object from A to B, you have a particular item that you want to sell, brand recognition is important, and that plays into visibility of your brand. So we're talking about logos that you need to identify and allow you to differentiate yourself from the competitors that you may have. You don't want something too complex in a logo. Make it simple, easier for people to identify, and it becomes a tool that you can continue to use throughout the years, whether it be on websites, alliance logos, anything that you want to give out, cards here at Fanfest. We see people doing that here today. It can allow you to be known just by that and differentiate you between your competitors, which is important. So if I threw this up, everybody here automatically is going to recognize most of these real-life logos that have been generated. And in Eve, it is just as important. Of course, I'm going to grab this next one off of Reddit. Some of you remember this guy. So if I went through and asked people to tell me what some of these are, most of you would know all of those right out of the gate. And the same applies to whether you have an industrial corp out there, or if you have a small business that you're working on, or even if it's something that you're doing not integrated with a corp, but an individual enterprise, you want to look at the same thing, is brand recognition, and it's awareness and getting your product out there. So next thing we'll talk about is the product life cycle. So there's some differences between product life cycle in Eve and product life cycle in the real world and how it applies to you. So some things that you have to look at is marketing and introduction stage. So in Eve, the marketing and introduction stage is not something that is player driven, that is development driven. So anytime something new is entered into the game world, that is where it's hitting. However, services, which are player created, is another item, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But those are things such as PushX, Red Frog Freight, Black Frog Freight, all the ones that run with that company. Older, back in the day, research services, mercenary services, anything like that is service driven is going to fall into this category. Growth stage, maturity stage, and saturation decline stage. So your growth stage, it's basically when you're in development of whatever businesses it is that you want to pursue in EVE Online. So, and for new players, old players, everyone is going to go through this, unless your idea is terrible, and then you'll never get to stage 2. But moving on. So, marketing introduction stage. This slide pretty much encapsulates everything that happens there. So you're going to run into high cost. You're developing a new product. You are moving on to try and field whatever idea you have, whether it be a service or product in Eve or just general merchandise. And this can go from everything from, if you want to sell super caps, how do you want to market that? So this is where those costs are going to come from. And a new player coming into the market is going to find out how to drive these costs down over time. The veterans have already gone through this. So whether you're coming back to an industry that you were in previously or you are starting on something new, more than likely, this is one of the things that you're going to not run into. So little or no competition. That's real world. for new product development, and Eve doesn't really apply. Demand has to be created. That is a very unique situation, and there's one that we can discuss that is different than most others, and that is combat boosters. And that is because even though that is an old item, not a lot of people are aware of how they work correctly. So you, by educating the consumer, you can artificially create a demand for that product. The same can be done with almost any item in Eve, and another good example is when Reload makes his videos. There is a spike in the market on those particular modules, on those fittings, every time one of those videos comes out, because he is educating the consumer market on how to use those modules. So that is a unique business opportunity that's happening when demand is created. Customers have to be prompted to try the product. Some of those combat boosters, we can touch that one. That's pretty much Eve University's best contribution here, is teaching new players how to use things in Eve to create whatever item it is they want or drive business in whatever particular market they choose. So, and of course, we have the devs introducing OP items, rapid light missiles, stuff like that. All right, so here's some examples of a business in that category. I found this online, and if any of you haven't seen this website, check it out. It's called buymypills.com. How they got that domain, I don't really know. But it's a satire-based company that is relatively unknown. I haven't seen any advertising for them in the searches that I did when I was doing research for this presentation. But that's where they are. They're a new upstart in Eve. And I was talking about combat boosters just because I ran through this. And, this is a company that, we'll look at it again in a year and see what's happened. Where have they grown, or have they run into the same problems that we've seen elsewhere? So we'll talk about growth stage. All this is pretty self-explanatory. We're talking about profitability begins to rise. So that has to do with someone learning to optimize what they're doing in EVE Online. And through production, we can talk about citadels, being able to shift production in nullsec space to optimize your cost, and using local markets to have better margin on what you're building. And that is really when you start doing your research. Okay, I have a product or I have a service that I'm doing, and you can't just stop there. You got to continue to innovate, okay? So if you're making 10%, that's great. If you're happy with that, that's great. However, you probably could be making 15%. And all you have to do is a little research into both the general market and the processes in which to create whatever item it is that you're doing, or whatever service that you're providing, and extend those margins. And the more you do that, then you can continue to compete with the other bigger players in the game that are running the same types of businesses that you are. And if you're not doing it, they are. Always keep that in mind. Increased competition leads to price decreases. We have seen this with two companies that are currently in competition in EVE Online right now. However, they offer two different types of services. I have one of them in the next slide, and it is PushX and Red Frog Freight. So we've seen both of those come into their own. Red Frog's been around for a long time. I've used them. I mean, how many people in here have used Red Frog? Okay, everybody. We're all lazy. We don't want to move our own shit. So, this is basically in that growth stage. Corps involved in super capital builds. Whether you're new, old, there's always going to be a point where you're going to need to research on how to do it better. Okay, and there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. We won't get into that in detail, but that's just something that if you're not innovating in that area, somebody else out there is going to beat you, especially with Rorquals. There's so many Rorqual nerds. It's becoming a real problem. So heavy PI production corporations. There are corps out there that strictly do PI. A lot of P4 corps that are doing that. And to be honest, until I was doing research for this, I didn't know that was an actual thing. I thought people just use alts for that. But there are actually corporations that are strictly dedicated to PI. Mining corporations in general, talk about how to optimize that. There's not a whole lot you can do there, but the guys that are mining and selling ore for 75% G to value just to get rid of it, please stop. You can build T1 battleships, insure them, and self-destruct them, and make more money. T1 product in general. Okay. Maturity stage, this is talking about when you have developed your business, you've done your research, and now you want to become more competitive with the other businesses in Eve. And this could be any business, service related. It can be a product that you're packaging and working on. And when we talk about businesses, you don't have to just produce a gyro stabilizer 2 and throw it on the market. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is when you come up with a way to package those items, and fit ships are a great example, and make it easily accessible to consumer. And one of the best things you can keep in mind is if you can save somebody time, you're going to make money. Everybody in Eve wants to be lazy. If they can save 15 minutes doing something, you're going to make money doing it. Sales volume tends to peak. This will happen once people recognize that what you're doing is valuable to them, you're saving time, you've optimized your efficiency, and now you're making real money. So your price per unit is going to go a little bit down, but you'll sell more as a whole. So this is our example of a corporation that's in the maturity stage right now, which is PushX. They provide a variety of services, which are very unique. They've dived into pushing out emails to you. They are involved with Twitter, Facebook, the Twitter sphere, not PL sphere. And their slogan, don't move it, push it. That is a great way for a corporation to, convey what they want to do to the rest of the Eve community. And a lot of people, if I ask you what PushX's slogan is, I've had people just be able to rattle it off. And that is great advertising. And like I said, with logos, slogans are the exact same thing. They allow you to be identified as a business. So then we have saturation decline stage. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because it really doesn't apply to Eve Online. But this is the real world, how it would occur. Most products follow a bell curve. However, some products, that curve really never ends because the product stays in continuation. Good examples of that are Coca-Cola, Pepsi. Been around for years, haven't gone anywhere. They're still here. And then you got other companies that burn and die in a fire. So Red Frog Freight is kind of in that category. And the reason that I put them there is because they do have a lot of services, but in competition with PushX, they haven't really innovated lately. They're a really good company, very reliable, and if you look at their contract count that's on here, they actually had more than PushX, and both of those shots were taken on the same day for PushX and Red Frog. So the thing about them is their reliability, longevity, and the fact that they're well known and have gotten their name out there, that's what keeps them in business now. But if a company like PushX continues to innovate and reach out to people and does the advertising like they are now, that's probably going to change. So I would definitely advise for this particular company, if I was working on that project, to do a little bit of innovation both on the website and advertising side to increase their market share, which is what they're currently losing in Eve. Advertising. Probably singly the most important aspect of any business that you create, whether it be in Eve Online or the real world. And what we're talking about here is if you reach out to 10 people, and for every 10 people that you reach out to, you get 2 and retain them, that is gaining market share through advertising. And it is just as important in Eve Online that it is in the real world. And you have multiple places to do that in Eve. So you have forums, both official and non-official, so everybody knows Reddit, right? Titan just died, I'm sure you people saw that. It helps consumers compare products and services. They need to know that you're there in order to see what you have to offer. So, reach out through various means. Don't just use the in-game, abilities that are available to you. You need to reach out. And the farther you reach out, the more people are going to know that you're here and you have something to offer. And that's really what you want to do. In the real world, educate society about important issues. And that's important both in Eve and in the real world. In Eve, you can have a service that, you may provide something that can also be educational in Eve. Eve University is a great example of that. Brave Newbies, another great example of that. They are advertising themselves as new player friendly, and they are gaining new players as a result through their advertising. And they are teaching new players how to play EVE and how to become a part of the greater collective, which will hopefully join PvP and blow shit up. That's what we like. Wingspan. So as much as I dislike the delivery of torpedoes, everybody knows who this is when you see the logo and what they do. And this is not a monetary gain product or service. This is just a general advertising, getting the word out of who they are and what they do. But it is a great example of a group of people who know what they're doing when it comes to advertising. They are in many places all over EVE. They are on Reddit. They are on the EVE Online forums. Pretty much everywhere I looked, there was Wingspan propaganda or advertising of some type. And like I said, this is a great example of how to do advertising, even though they're not actually advertising a monetary gain. Z-Kill Guide, we talked about this earlier. Big fan of this. The reason I have this in the slide is because of how it affects the market. And this is advertising that is both educational and affects the market every time that a new one comes out. So here's a list of places where, if you're advertising, you can take a look. So we have YouTube, Twitch. Obviously, if you have a product and you want to get more people to know it, hit up the popular streamers. They're always looking for, people to help sponsor what they're doing. If you give them a free ship and they can go out and get blown up, awesome, that's great for us to watch. It's also great to get your name out there and get more well-known, which gets more visibility on a product that you want to create and sell. This is just the easiest way to get that done. In-game station ads. So obviously this is relatively new. It hasn't been around for that many years. But it doesn't take that much effort to contact somebody in the EVE community, which are all over the place, and have an ad made for you. And it can be a corporation ad that is providing a particular product, and you can gear that ad towards that product. Everybody that's docked up is going to see that. So it's a great way to advertise. EVE official, unofficial forums we talked about, charity events such as EVE University. This is another way to look at it. If you have a product or service and you want to gain market share with that product or service, and you gear that product or service towards new players, and you go to places such as EVE University, Brave Newbies, as much as I want to say it, Karma Fleet, Pandemic Horde, all those places, if you want to do a little advertising, you talk to the right people, then you are educating a generation of new players that are coming to EVE about a product or service that you provide. And that is going to increase your market share as those players learn to come to you for whatever product or service that you're providing, whatever that business is that you want to get off the ground. Charity events, Twitter sphere, not PL sphere. This is important because as the social media is changing, and this has been in about the last 5 years, more and more people are using Facebook, more and more people are using Twitter. You got more Facebook guys, more streamers on Twitch. A lot of people doing videos for various reasons. It's becoming more the everyday way to advertise in both streaming, general how-to videos. The EVE Kill Guys Z-Kill Guide is a good, group of that. But what you really want to do is get involved with that, because if you're continuing to post on forums, that's great. But there are many more people, aside from the Reddit users, that will watch a 2 or 3 minute video for something in EVE Online than they would spend hours perusing forums for whatever answer it is that they're looking for. So that's just much easier to gain that newer audience. And that's the newer generation that we're talking about. A lot of us are older players, but as the new generation is coming into EVE Online, you got to gear yourself more towards those very short attention span, very short time span videos to gain that market share and let them know that you're out there. All right. So let's talk about developing a business mind in EVE Online. This happens for every player that comes into EVE Online that gets involved with industry or the market in any given way. If you PvP all day, it's probably not for you, but both players, new and old, have access to the largest business simulation in history. It really is. And EVE Online works with multiple schools out there and colleges to have economists go through this information. So if you're looking to build a business in the future, you literally have access to somewhere where you can test your ideas and see if it works for you. You can try advertising. You can try a business model that you may develop. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you've just found a way it doesn't work and you haven't impacted your real world, your real life. It's much easier to lose this than it is thousands of dollars in the real world. Other thing is you can develop things in EVE that elsewhere you've not been able to, and this is third-party applications. We've seen a lot of that over the years that innovate EVE Online. And innovation is something that's kind of been lacking for the last few years, aside from the dev side of the house. But player development has slowed down substantially. And when I talk about that, we talk about things like EVE Fitting Tool, which when they were created was a huge stepping stone for EVE Online. And it allowed players to now easily simulate any ship fit that they wanted to. And that's just one example. Moving on, you've got things like EVE Trade, which were developed. You've got other applications in the wormhole side of the planet that people like to use. But there hasn't been any continuation of that, really. There have been some apps that have come out, but not a huge continuation of that. So we want to encourage that players continue to develop these types of things. So that's pretty much all I have for that presentation. Open for questions on any subject regarding markets or development of tools.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about IPOs, and you said that that was either the first or the largest that was liquidated in such a fashion.
Yeah.
Publicly traded. Do you have any examples of others in EVE Online that were similar or also liquidated like that?
So there were some larger IPOs for that. One particular, and keep in mind if people are going back in history, we're going back about 10 years on these. There was one shortly after called Titans for You. However, that ended up being a scam. That was larger than One Stop Research. And that has particularly been the case in the market discussions forums in regards to those types of IPOs. There's been a large decline in public investment in various ventures. It has transitioned more from the IPO format into a bond format with third parties securing those. That's been a change in the market due to the way that people have scammed the market discussion area from about 2009 to about 2011. And after the failure of a lot of those IPOs, that's kind of how it transitioned. Anybody else? Any questions? No. All right. That's all I've got for you guys. Appreciate y'all coming out, learning a little bit about how business works and how it translates to EVE Online. And see you next time.